Hey guys, today we're going to talk about equitable tracing under Singapore law. If you have ever wondered how you can trace and recover property that has been stolen from someone, keep watching. Equitable tracing is a remedy that is available in equity to allow a claimant to identify and follow their property or money when it has been wrongfully taken and mixed together with other assets. It's particularly useful in cases of fraud, theft, or breach of trust. The main goal of equitable tracing is to restore the claimant to his original position before the misappropriation occurred. Let's break down the key elements of equitable tracing. Number one, there must be a fiduciary relationship between the claimant and the wrongdoer. This is often found in cases involving trustees, agents, or directors of companies who have misappropriated assets. Number two, equitable tracing allows claimants to trace their property even when it has been mixed with other funds. This is particularly relevant in today's digital age where funds can be misappropriated and then transferred digitally and quickly into different bank accounts. Third element, defenses and limitations. Equitable tracing is subject to certain defenses. For example, if somebody paid good money for stolen goods or property and didn't know about the misappropriation, tracing may not be possible. Number four, equitable liens and constructive trust. These are common remedies available once tracing established. An equitable lien gives the claimant a security interest over the mixed property, while a constructive trust can compel the wrongdoer to hold the property on trust for the claimant. To illustrate, let's consider a real-life scenario. Imagine you are a beneficiary of a trust. This can include a trust of money under a will. And you discover that the trustee or the executor had wrongfully used the money meant for you to purchase a Mercedes-Benz. With equitable tracing, you can trace the misappropriated funds into the Mercedes, and potentially the court can impose a constructive trust over the Mercedes, requiring the trustee to hold it for your benefit. In Singapore, the principles of equitable tracing are derived from common law and have been affirmed in several landmark cases. The courts have emphasized the need for a fiduciary relationship and have shown a willingness to apply these principles flexibly so as to achieve justice. Let's look at the Singapore Court of Appeal case of Kao Tong and Tong Tien Si Construction, which I shall call TTSC. Now, TTSC was wound up as it was unable to pay its debt of $53 million. The liquidator commenced proceedings against three of TTSC's directors and shareholders for breach of fiduciary duties. The three directors had siphoned off a sum of about $980,000 from TTSC and transferred it to another company in Australia called Kao Tong, okay, of which there's a person there called Sally, was a nominee director. This is TTSC. They siphoned off $980,000 to Kao Tong, and the director of Kao Tong is a person called Sally. Kao Tong, the Australian company, then used this sum of money to buy a property, which I shall call the first property, and this property was later sold, and the proceeds was used to purchase another property, which I shall call the woodwork property. The judge held that Kao Tong and Sally, over here in Australia, were constructive trustees of the $980,000 and the woodwork property, the second property. Both Sally and TTSC appealed. Sally said that she should not be made personally liable for the $980,000 that was misappropriated, and that the woodwork property, the second property, belonged entirely to her. TTSC argued that the trial judge below, was wrong in refusing to grant it tracing orders against Kao Tong and Sally. The Court of Appeal held that for Sally to be liable for knowing receipt, which would render her a constructive trustee, TTSC must show that its assets were disposed of in breach of fiduciary duty. Number two, TTSC would have to show that Sally received the assets and knew that the assets were traceable to a breach of fiduciary duty. The Court of Appeal also noted that if TTSC wanted to hold Sally liable for dishonest assistance, which is another different principle, TTSC has to show that its assets were disposed of in breach of trust or fiduciary duty. The Court of Appeal held that Sally was not personally liable for the $980,000 as she neither knowingly received nor dishonestly assisted in its siphoning. As for knowing receipt, she neither personally received the proceeds nor knew that they were improperly siphoned off. However, Kautong, the Australian company, was liable to account for knowing receipt because the knowledge of the three defendants, who were its controlling minds, could be imputed to it. As for dishonest assistance, the fact that Sally agreed to be a nominee director of Kautong did not automatically mean that she dishonestly assisted the three defendants of TTSC in committing their breach of fiduciary duty, and there was no evidence of actual assistance by Sally. The Court of Appeal noted that Sally purchased the second property with the sale proceeds from the first property and knowingly mixed the trust money with her own money in doing so. So in this situation, the law assumed that the whole of the second property was subject to the trust, and the burden was on Sally to show which portion of the purchase price came from her own sources, which was not tainted by the breach of trust. So in this regard, she should be given the opportunity to show the extent to which she contributed her own money towards the portion of the second property's purchase price in excess of the amount obtained from the sale of the first property. The Court of Appeal declined to grant a tracing order in respect of the $53 million, as this $53 million represented the total amount owed by TTSC to its creditors, and numerous transactions had occurred between TTSC and the three defendants. Hence, it would be very difficult to identify the specific sums from which tracing was to be initiated. And the exercise would be daunting, if not impossible, so many transactions occurred. But a tracing order in respect of the $980,000 was granted. So although the sum was not received by Kautong in one tranche, one remittance, it was a starting point from which a tracing exercise could start to begin. To sum up, equitable tracing is a powerful tool in Singapore law and English law that helps claimants recover their property or funds when their property or funds have been wrongfully taken. By establishing a fiduciary relationship and tracing into mixed funds, the courts can provide equitable remedies to achieve justice in helping people get back their money. So that's all for today. Stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video.